Warning, the Renegade Recruiter is not for the soft, timid, or faint-hearted. If you need permission or seek approval from your mother, spouse, mates in the pub, or anyone else for that matter, this really isn't for you. If any of what you've heard puts you off in the slightest, I advise you not to listen any further. You've been warned. Prepare yourself for the no bullshit, zero fluff. Quick, dirty, and uncensored secrets for any serious recruitment, staffing, and search business owner who wants to earn more money with less work and fewer headaches, without having to kiss ass or bend over backwards to please anyone. He's a relentless and fearless renegade who will stop at nothing to reveal the harsh, unforgiving, and brutal truth about what it really takes to succeed in this business. He's a guy people love to hate and hate to love. It's your host, Terry Edwards. The Renegade Recruiter is unleashed.
Hello. This is Terry Edwards, Renegade Recruiter, and welcome to this week's podcast. And of course, we're joined by our co-host, Drew. How are you, Drew?
I'm good, thank you, Terry. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you very much for asking. Before we get into the podcast itself, look, if you would like additional show notes, please go to therenegaderecruiter.com. If you've enjoyed the show, please tell all your friends or your colleagues within the recruitment and search industry. If you did enjoy the show, stop listening. Please go over to iTunes and subscribe. Really appreciate the reviews that you've left. If you want to leave a review, please do. Today, we're looking at the difference between being a hired help in the recruitment or search world or being an expert, and there's a massive difference between the two. Now, I may have mentioned this before, that Drew's girlfriend is in the process of setting up her own business. And it's an industry that I don't know much about, actually. I find it interesting, but one thing I do find really interesting is the aspect of marketing. Because that's, I could talk about that all day and what's going on in the marketing world. We were sitting around the table a few weeks ago just talking about this, and the subject of positioning came up. And position is basically how you view yourself in the market, and how your competitors view you, and how your clients and candidates view you in the market. And positioning, not only is it one of my favorite subjects, I can honestly say it's a very important topic that not many recruitment and search firm owners actually understand in any way whatsoever. And when you get this right, as I touched on earlier, it will make such a difference to your business, how you position yourself. And there's really two ways that you can be viewed or positioned. You can be positioned as what we call, one, the hired help, or two, the paid expert. And there's a substantial difference between the two. It's like the difference between hiring an interior designer or a painter and decorator. If you think about it, both essentially do very much the same thing. They're going to decorate your room or your home or whatever it is. But the typical painter and decorator will do as they're told. So you say you want a room and you want it bright and spacious. You then tell the painter that you want to paint all the walls dark blue, let's say. Decorators probably not going to ask any questions about that because they're the hired help. But think about it. The interior designer would lead you through the process of getting the results that you actually want. You then tell them that you want to paint the walls dark blue, and they will tell you that if you actually want a bright and spacious room, perhaps dark blue isn't the way to go. And they will give you their expertise and the colors that you should be using to get that spacious room. And you'll listen to them because you've recruited them, or you're paying them as the paid expert. See, the hired help gets told what to do and when to do it. The paid expert is a leader, and they work with clients on their terms, and that's the way to do it. Now, you as a recruitment or search firm owner, it's imperative, if you want to achieve the success that you desire, that you position yourself as the expert and not just another recruiter that's going to find anybody on any database or any job board. You've got to position yourself as the expert. What's your opinion of what I've said so far, Drew?
My opinion, yeah, I agree with it 100%. I think Actually, what I'm going to say is that I think a lot of recruitment and search firm owners, they are the expert. Okay, they know more about recruiting the top candidates than their clients do. That should go without saying. The mistake that I think a lot of people make is that they believe that their clients want the hired help rather than the expert. And in fact, I think even I'll go as far as to say that clients sometimes even think they want this as well. But the truth is they don't. I mean, I think I read it first in a Dan Kennedy book. I'm not sure where I think he was quoting it from somebody else. I'm not sure where from. But I mean, he says that most people are walking around with an umbilical cord in hand looking for a new place to plug it in. And I know on a personal level that if I have a problem that needs fixing, so if I'm looking for someone to join my team and I've tried everything I know how to fix it myself, but nothing seems to work, I want the paid expert to tell me what to do. I want someone who's going to lead me through the process. And that's why you should be hired as a recruitment or search firm, to lead your client through the process of finding the best possible candidate.
Yeah. Perfect sense. And what you said there was a really good point at the beginning, that in most cases, most recruiters and search firms and consultants, they probably know more about the marketplace than the actual client themselves. They really are the experts, and they just don't appreciate it. And I know, look, I really do appreciate that this may not sit easy with you initially. And I remember when I first entered the world of search, and I used to work in the retail sector, and I'd go along to meetings with directors of HR and CIOs, because I recruited within IT within retail, and they would literally tell me, this is the sort of person that I want, and this is where you'll find them. And I would literally say, okay, and I would go to these places, because we only did retained search, and look for these candidates. And a lot of time we couldn't find them, and it was a real challenge. And initially, I found it difficult going back to clients saying, look, we're having problems here. But it wasn't until I got my head around this, hang on a minute, I actually know more about this market than these clients do. And when I was able to push back on the client and say, do you know what, Mr. or Mrs. Hiring Manager, what you're asking for, where you're asking us to look, those kind of people don't actually exist. And we're going to have to spread our net wider, and we're going to have to look at the job spec and the salary and really push back, because here's the thing, I'm an expert in this. And if you wanted hired help, just go and put the job on the job board or something and see what comes up there. But I really am expert. If you want the best candidates, this is what you need to do. But I do appreciate, especially if you're new to the industry, it can be difficult to do initially.
Yeah. And what I was going to say, just to add to that, it comes down to perception. Because as I sort of said earlier, most recruitment and search firm owners are the expert. They already are. Okay, they've been around the block. They know the market that they work in. They know the industry. They know where their candidates will be a lot of the time. They know the best way. They know the best questions to ask in the industry, for example. They are the expert. But the problem is perception. Are you perceived as an expert by your potential clients? Because there's a big difference between the two. So what I mean by that is, it is possible to know everything there is to know about a certain subject. So I could know everything there is to know about medicine, or I could know everything there is to know about law, criminal law, for example. But if I don't have, if we talk about medicine, if I don't have the qualifications, if I'm not a doctor or even a nurse, or if you're talking about law, if I'm not qualified to practice law, then I will not be perceived as the expert. Okay, so I could know more about medicine than your sort of local GP, your local doctor. But because he or she has the qualifications, he or she has the white coat, he or she is perceived as the expert, which means that they will get more clients than you and that they can command more money than you. So it's about making sure that you are perceived as the expert by your clients. Does that make sense, though?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you as a recruiter search firm are talking to the client and they say, this is the job order that we need to fill. We've been looking for this candidate for 6 months, 9 months, and we haven't had much joy. And then the client proceeds to tell you what they're going to pay you and where you're going to go and find this. You really got to push back on that and say, well, hang on a minute. If what you've done so far hasn't worked, working with the hired help, why do you think it's going to work again? Just doing the same thing again? Clearly what you need here is an expert, because you have a problem in this area that needs fixing. It's a bit like you said earlier, Drew, about, if you're going to we're talking off mic, so to speak, about accountants. We're just talking about accountants, and we have a bookkeeper, we have an accountant, and when it comes to that side of the business, quite frankly, at times I'm lost, and I pay for my accountant to guide us through the whole process so we get the results that we want. But you see, my accountant is the hired help. Sorry, my accountant is not the hired help. My apologies. He's an expert in what he does.
Yeah.
And of course, I pay accordingly. And there's less resistance then from your clients when you're perceived as the hired. Sorry, I can't get this right. When you're perceived as the expert, and it does come down to perception. And there's a number of things that you can do to enhance your positioning so you're seen as an expert. And the first thing that you must be doing is become an advocate, or what we call an educator for your potential clients. One way of having authority status is by being an educator, an advocate for your particular clients. As an educator, you work hard at communicating with your potential clients and your existing clients on a regular basis what's going on. If you think about it, you receive an email from me on a daily basis where I'm giving you advice and guidance on how to grow your business. You can do exactly the same. Some of your competitors are doing that right now. So every day they're sending out information to their potential clients, positioning themselves as the expert and giving them advice, giving them guidance, giving them education of what's going on in the marketplace, giving them education on what's going on with candidates, giving them education on what's going on with salaries in the particular markets that they work in. And you can do exactly the same, because the moment that you do that, it helps position you as the expert in your market. Does that make sense, Drew?
Yeah, it does. It
Yeah.
makes perfect sense.
The second thing to do is to have what we call well-defined niches or niches. I never get it right how Americans pronounce it, but just to have a well-defined niche. So instead of trying to be all things to all people, focus your efforts on specific markets that you want to approach. Now, what this does for you is if you've got a well-defined market, what it means is from your point of view, you're more likely to understand what's going on in that market and able to cater better for that market. And also, you become more appealing to individuals in that market because it's easier to position yourself as, let's say, a financial recruiter than a generous recruiter, and we recruit financial professionals. Because financial professionals will say things like, oh, they may not say it, by the way, but they're thinking it, yeah, but our market's different, and I want somebody that really understands our market. And if you're a generalist recruiter, the perception is that you can't be all things to all people. And you're a generalist, and you may have recruited a legal person, you may have recruited an IT person, and now you're saying that you can do a better job than a specialist financial recruiter, as an example.
You're listening to the Renegade Recruiter Unleashed podcast. For show notes, additional resources, and podcast updates, head over to www.therenegaderecruiter.com.
So having a well-defined niche and then looking to what we call dominate that niche. I've said this many times. Rather than competing with people, with your competitors, dominate your competitors by having this well-defined niche. So things like having groups on LinkedIn. So let's say you're a financial recruiter. You should have groups on LinkedIn where you're inviting other potential clients to join your group on LinkedIn. You should have a group on LinkedIn to invite your candidates to join your group, and you can post articles in there because it positions you as the expert, and you've got less competition and less resistance to fees as well. That's another really critical point when you're positioned as the expert.
Yeah, I think when you specialize in a certain area, it's automatically people think because you specialize in that area, you must be an expert in that area. So again, going back to that perception thing, it really helps with that perception.
Yeah. The next thing is we used to work with a chap called Martin, and he used to write a lot of Martin recruiting a specific market. And one of the things that he did that worked really well, he wrote a lot of articles that were then published in particular publications within that particular market. So make an effort to write articles pertaining to your area of expertise. send them to publications in that market and trade journals, etc. And interesting, by the way, trade journals are often desperate for information. They're desperate for stuff to put into the trade journals. And a very clever technique you can do here. So let's say you recruit in the financial sector, as an example. You could write an article about how to attract top performing financial professionals in that particular sector. Now, you can do a 200-word article on that. And at the end of the article, rather than saying give us a call and we'll tell you more, because that's really challenging, getting them from reading that article to then giving you a call. You could, at the end of the article, you could say, if you would like a free ebook that shares with you exactly how to attract top performing financial professionals or whatever niche that you work in, simply go here and get your free report that normally retails for XYZ on Amazon, but you can have it for absolutely free. So not only you position yourself as an expert, but you're now generating leads at the same time as well. And think about it, there's no cost to do that. The trade journals are grateful for you offering to write something for them, because they're constantly looking for material. So you write something and you're also generating leads at the same time. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. So writing articles is great. Another good thing worth doing, that a few of our clients have done, is writing a book. Now, writing a book that provides a solution to the potential client's problems. So one of our clients, Kelly, she wrote a book. She works within the pharmaceutical sector, and she wrote a book about attracting top performing professionals, marketing professionals within the pharmaceutical sector and the challenges going on there. Think about that for a minute. She is now an author of a book. Her book is available on Amazon. If you're competing directly with Kelly, think about this. Who would your client rather speak to? The author of a book or another recruiter? Now, what Kelly does is she uses that book to promote her services to potential clients. So having a book really does position you as an authority on that. Drew, I know you've written a few books in your time as well. What impact has it had on you and the books that you've written?
I mean, just exactly what we're saying. It helps you be perceived as an expert. There's a certain, it's completely false because just because you've written a book doesn't mean you are an expert. Doesn't mean you know any more about that subject. But people make that assumption. If you're an author in a particular area, then people make the assumption that you know a lot about that particular area. I mean, personally, Terry, I know you have as well. I've read some really rubbish books where they just talk nonsense. But I know if someone is the author and they're going against somebody who is a non-author, and that's the only differentiator, the author's going to win every time.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you and I have sometimes occasionally seen some spats, so to speak, going on social media platforms such as Facebook and LinkedIn, where individuals are having a go at each other. And the individual that's got the book that says, well, in my book, I said that tends to quieten down the other individual. It's a very powerful tool, for positioning yourself as an authority. And as you said, Drew, I've written 3 books, aimed at the recruitment and search market that have done exceptionally well. And, one of them has become a top seller. One of the things that it also does for you when you write a book, you then get invited along to speaking event engagements. And that's a great way, again, to position yourself as the expert. Because I appreciate that for public speaking is scary for a lot of people. However, when you become a speaker in seminars or panels, it's a great way to position yourself as an authority. And one way of doing this, by the way, is align yourself to other successful speakers in your particular niche. Now, these speaking events, they don't necessarily have to be on the stage with thousands of people. Webinars, podcasts, we're going to come to a bit later on. These are other ways of positioning yourself as an authority. And when you speak at these events as well, one thing that's again proved extremely powerful is get somebody to take a photograph of you speaking at the events with you on the stage and the audience listening and hanging on to your every word, and then post to those on be it on your website or any marketing that you're doing. Because again, you standing at the front of the room speaking and you being seen as a speaker helps position you as an expert. Anything to add to that, Drew?
No, again, I can think of that really well.
Okay. The next one is get interviewed on radio shows and podcasts. In the UK, there's the BBC, and local BBC stations, again, are constantly looking out to interview people. So by all means, get in touch with local BBC, because I believe they have to have a certain amount of interviews a week. So they're constantly looking for guests to interview on the radio shows. And again, you can go onto the radio shows, talk about some of the challenges in your market. Please don't go onto the radio show and talk about how great you are, what you do, because that doesn't work, and it's kind of frowned upon, especially with the BBC. But again, offering your free book, your free ebook that helps solve their problem. That's how you're going to generate the leads. But not just with the BBC, local radios all over the world. But getting interviews on radio shows is extremely effective. Getting interviews on podcasts is extremely effective. Now, podcasts are typically very much niche driven, so it makes it an ideal way to get your message across to a large group of people. You see, most recruiters, when it comes to selling and marketing, and particularly selling, they're selling on what we call a one-to-one. With some of the ways that we're sharing with you now, you're now selling 1 to several hundred every single time. Other things would be social media, such as Twitter, Facebook. You can often post things on there that helps position you as an expert in your particular field. The next one is what we call trust triggers. See, once you've appeared on a radio show or spoken alongside a well-known speaker, or had your work published in a book or whatever, you can begin to share that experience as a way of building trust. So, for example, if you're I'll stick with Financial Recruiter. So you've got your ebook, and by the way, let's cover this off. When I talk about books, you can get a book published on Amazon. Don't expect it to be a bestseller. It doesn't have to be several thousand pages. You can have a 100-page book on there, and that can retail for $8, $15, whatever, or £8 or £15. But that's what's called a trust trigger, in as much that you're now really positioning yourself as an expert, and your clients are more likely to trust you because you're an author of a book, because you're a public speaker, because they've heard your podcast. Drew, does that make sense? Well, I've just said that, all that there, in terms of position recruiters and search firms as authorities.
It makes perfect sense. And I think if you want to see an example of this, I mean, without a doubt, Terry is one of the leading experts, if not the leading experts in the recruitment and search industry. Okay, and everything that we spoke about in this podcast, if you look closely, Terry will do. So again, Terry, I know you're an author of several books. You speak at events aimed at recruiters quite regularly. You niche.
Absolutely.
You write publications. I mean, you constantly, so you got your daily emails. I see you constantly posting stuff on LinkedIn, blogs. So yeah, I mentioned the book. You speak it. Obviously, we're on a podcast right now. So all these things combined help you get perceived as an expert. And then this really, I mean, all of this forms sort of the backbone of your whole marketing message. There's no reason why a recruitment or search firm could do the exact same thing. Yeah.
And just to let you know, guys, as you're listening to this, your competitors, some of your competitors, very few admittedly, are doing this right now. And, you know, as I said before, if especially with the guest speaker in the book and so on, you following up with a client who's just requested, and it might just be an ebook, and when the gatekeeper said, "What's the call about?" and you respond with, "It's about the book they've just ordered," rather than, "Or I'm a headhunter," or "I'm a recruiter," because you kind of know what's going to happen there with the gatekeeper. It's completely different positioning. You're able to stand above the crowd. We kind of touched this, we've said it many times. The key to your success as a recruitment or search firm is twofold, really: marketing and mindset. You get those two right, and you will dominate your market. So that's how you can position yourself as an expert, and that's how you can become an expert rather than a hired help, which will help you generate more leads, help you increase your personal bank balance as well. I've got nothing else to add to that, Drew. Is there anything you want to add to what we've covered today?
No.
Fantastic. Well, Drew, listen, first of all, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
That's okay. What are you going to cover in the next show?
I'm just coming to that, actually, Drew. But before I do that, if you want additional resources, go to therenegaderecruiter.com. Excuse me. If you enjoyed the show, tell all your friends. If you didn't enjoy the show, stop listening. Next week, we kind of touched it this week. Next week, we're going to be looking at niches and having a well-defined niche, and how you can then dominate that niche. We're going to go into a lot more detail, exactly what you're going to do. So some very clever and quite cost-effective things that you can do to dominate your niche. So listen out to that next time. Until then, take care, take action, and be relentless.
Stop recording.